What is a qualitative sampling method?
So, what is a sampling method? So, sampling method is ito yung mga paraan ng pagkuha ng iyong qualitative research.
What are the two types of qualitative sampling?
Probability and non-probability sampling.
The probability and non-probability sampling.
Probability and non-probability sampling.
Probability and non-probability sampling.
What are the types of non-probability sampling?
So, before we start, let's first define non-probability sampling. Well, a non-probability sampling is a subjective approach for picking units from a population, or in other words, it is a non-random sampling technique wherein researchers have their target respondents. In non-probability sampling, take note of this, not all members in a population has an equal chance to participate in the study. And in non-probability sampling, we have three types of it, wherein first is the convenience sampling, wherein the researchers choose respondents based on their convenience. In convenience sampling, respondents are selected based on their inclusion in a certain sample because the researchers think or concluded that this group is easy to access. It can depend on the geographical proximity, availability of the respondent, or willingness of a person to participate in the study. Fun fact, an example of a convenience sampling are the snowballing and friendship pyramiding, wherein it is noticeable that the groups included were built through linkages. To explain it further, the two are undeniably convenient for the researchers, wherein first, the participants can be the researchers' peers. However, it depends. And take note that in snowballing, the participants have the opportunity to pick other participants in the study as if it is a ball of snow that becomes larger and larger and larger and larger as it keeps on rolling. Despite convenience sampling, we also have quota sampling. And quota sampling is based on the non-random selection of a specified quantity or percentage of units. This samples a population that has been subdivided into classes or categories. In quota sampling, it requires less respondents. Why? Simply because the researchers will divide the groups from a chosen sample into a strata, or subgroups with similar or mutual classifications and characteristics. After dividing, they will gather samples from the strata until they reach their quota. Last but not the least is the judgmental sampling. Judgmental sampling implies that the researchers use their own expert judgment in selecting participants for their study. This is based on their existing knowledge or professional judgment about the topic and the target respondents. However, this is not a random selection because the people chosen are based on an expert's evaluation of the study. However, there are instances in which it creates a degree of bias due to the fact that the frame and population are not identical, and it is solely relied on the researcher's judgment and opinion.
What are the types of probability sampling?
Probability sampling is widely used in research. It ensures that the sample is representative of the population, allows researchers to estimate the level of uncertainty in the results, and makes it possible to generalize the findings to the population. Simple random sampling is a completely random method of sample selection. This sample method is as simple as assigning numbers to persons, and then selecting at random from those numbers using an automated mechanism. Finally, the numbers chosen represent the members included in the sample. In this method of sampling, researchers choose samples in two ways: the lottery system and using number generating software or random number table. This sampling strategy is typically used in a large population and has both advantages and limitations. Cluster sampling is a method of randomly selecting people who are geographically dispersed. For example, if you wanted to select 100 people from the total population of the United States, it would be nearly impossible to obtain a complete list of everyone. Instead, the researcher chooses areas, such as cities or countries, at random and then chooses from inside those limits and at random. Cluster sampling is used to examine a specific population in which the sample contains more than a few pieces, such as city, family, university, and so on. The clusters are then chosen by dividing the population into smaller portions. So, stratified random sampling is a strategy in which the researcher splits a larger population into smaller groups that do not typically overlap yet represent the full population. Organize these groups while sampling, and then draw a sample for each group independently. A common strategy is to arrange or classify items according to gender, age, ethnicity, or other criteria. Subjects are divided into mutually exclusive groups, and the members are chosen from these groups using simple random selection. Members of these groups should be distinct so that each member of all groups has an equal chance of being chosen, using basic probability. This sampling technique is also known as random quota sampling. When you use systematic sampling, you select every nth individual to be a part of the sample. For example, you may include every fifth person in the sample. Systematic sampling is an expanded version of the same old technique in which each group member is randomly selected to produce a sample at regular intervals. Using this sampling strategy, every member of a population has an equal chance of being chosen. Understanding the different methods of probability sampling will help you make informed judgments and meet your research goals whether you're conducting a survey, poll, or study.
What are the other specific types of probability sampling?
Now, let's move on to the other kinds of specific sampling. So, the first part is the criterion sampling. Criterion sampling is the selection based on the specific characteristics. It involves the identification of a particular criterion of importance, articulation of the criterion, and the systematic review and study of cases that meet the criterion. The reason for undertaking the criterion sampling is to identify the major systems' weaknesses for improvement.
Homogeneous sampling is a type of purposive sampling in which participants have similar qualities, attributes, categories, and so on. It entails picking comparable examples to study further. Homogeneous sampling involves choosing similar cases to investigate further a certain phenomena or subgroup of interest.
Maximum variation sampling. The object of the selection is to attain more in-depth views from a big number of participants. In these types of sampling, common themes or patterns are more palpable. Ang maximum na sample ng variation ay sadyang pinili upang maging hindi katulad sa isa't isa bilang magagawa. Ang lawak ng mga pangunahing pambansa o internasyonal na proyekto ay maaaring suriin sa tulong ng ganitong paraan ng sampling.
What is intensity sampling? Intensity sampling, it is an objective of the selection. It is to sample a same characteristic repeatedly. This is particularly useful in the phenomenological research design. Example, in the evaluating teaching skills, an evaluator could sample and interview the student in the top high tier of a given class or student that provide in the deep information or knowledge about phenomena of interest.
The last part, other specific kinds of sampling, is deviant case sampling. A researcher uses deviant case sampling also called extreme case sampling, when he or she seeks cases that differ from the dominant pattern or from the predominant characteristics of the other cases.
Oh my God! Wow!
What is a purposive sampling?
What is a purposive sampling? Purposive sampling, it is refers to a group of non-probability sampling technique in which units are selected because they have characteristics that you need in your sample. In the other words, units are selected in a purposive sampling. So, using student feedback, survey is to collect the input about education student, their choice of subject system, and literary and else. So, the primary factor in qualitative research data collection is a purpose sampling can be done while in process of collecting data or while doing the interpretation of data analysis. Before you gather the data, a letter of request will be presented to the school division to ask information to allow researchers to conduct the study and to ask questions to the respondents.
What are the diverse strategies used for recruiting research participants?
And now, let's move on to the last part of the sampling method, which is the diverse strategies used for recruiting research participants. So the first part here is putting notices in public spaces such as around university campus. The second is using university participant pools, emailing notices of studies to various lit servers and email groups, leaving flyers in locations where those who fit your criteria are likely to see them. In bridal stores if you want to recruit people about to get married, and recruiting through specific places like doctors' surgeries, gyms, churches, mosques, and others.
The next is identifying key people who can recruit for you, such as an individual will connect with the potential participants, going somewhere potential participants are like to be, and presenting virtual written information about your research, including big events like LGBTQ Pride or weddings fairs, where you might be able to get a stall to promote the research. Using internet such as posting notices on different web forms or creating pages in social media sites like Facebook, press releases, or advertisements, and that's it.